Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Live from Radio Cayman Studio, this is
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community.
Is the global economy recovering? And how much oomph is there? We're going to take a tour around the world this morning and looks at 6 recently released macroeconomic variables to help us answer those questions. Because it's not just a matter of money, it's not just a matter of finance. If the economy struggles, it's going to affect our politics. It's going to tear our social fabric. My name is Emil Kalinowski, and I am broadcasting to you live from the studios of Radio Cayman in 89.9 in Grand Cayman and 93.9 in Grand Cayman Brock and Little Cayman, and also via Photons live on YouTube. You can see me on the Radio Cayman channel. Check it out, not just for this show, but for all the shows that we do all day long. Let's dive right into it. The first variable is going to be a broad one, and it's a leading indicator, and it's called a PMI. What is a PMI? It's a Purchasing Manager Index. Well, before I jump into that, what is a leading indicator? There are 3 kinds of indicators. There are lagging indicators. GDP, Gross Domestic Product, is a lagging indicator. That tells us what happened last quarter. There are coincident indicators. Industrial production, retail sales. And then there are leading indicators like surveys, like new orders. These are economic accounts that tell us what the future will likely hold. And while all of them are very important, in this particular moment in our history, we need to be focusing on the leading indicators because we just went through the ringer and now we're bouncing back. And we want to get a sense of the oomph behind this bounce back. Is it going to be a good one? Is it going to be meek? So PMI, it's a great leading indicator, and it's something that's done around the world for all manner of countries. I believe there's, let's see how many of them there were. There were 65 PMIs that were released last week and early this week. And what these things are surveys of purchasing managers, and they are asked, what do you think of the future? Do you have a lot of new orders? Do you have are you thinking about hiring? How's your supply lines looking? And then they score them. So it's indexed between 0 and 100. Anything above 50 represents expansion. Anything below, obviously, contraction. So that's pretty simple. And various organizations poll business managers with a simple better, worse, or same. So again, it's very consistent. Same score is used in Germany as Japan as Australia. And they're only asked, is this category better, worse, or the same? So that you could have a nice sense from around the world. You can look at a PMI in Australia, in Canada, in where else? The United States, anywhere. And you can have a kind of a sense of what's going on. And so they ask topics such as employment, inventory levels, new orders, production, supplier deliveries, or prices. Well, this and last week's deluge of these PMIs has all but captured every participating economy for the month of June. And again, these are forward-looking. What are the results? They're mixed. On the one hand, manufacturing and service industries, and those are the 2 main categories. There's also construction, but it's manufacturing and service that represents most of an economy and most of these PMIs. So they are all, well, almost all, uniformly better off in June than they were in May. 60 out of 65 PMI readings from around the world are better in June than in May. Excellent. But on the other hand, more than 2/3 of countries and regions, and I say regions because there's only one region, and that's the Euro area that's included in the surveys, they're still contracting. So if you look at the average score for manufacturing, it's a 48. That's below 50, as I told you earlier. If it's below 50, it's contracting. And for services, it's 41. What does that mean? It means it's good news that fewer businesses are contracting, but most of them are still experiencing or expecting contraction going forward. So it's good. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still not good, is kind of how we can summarize this, these readings from around the world. And my expectations had been raised all throughout this last month through June because of the relaxed corona restrictions. There's, of course, the exuberant Japanese, Chinese, German, and American stock market rallies. And copper, which is Dr. Copper, it reflects very well on economic activity. It's acting as if it was a new Elon Musk venture. So it's going through the roof. It's up 5% on the year, as if nothing had happened. So a lot of positives, but the PMIs are still suggesting that things are getting worse. Just fewer businesses are experiencing that worseness. All right, let's move over to the euro area. I just mentioned it. And let's talk about retail sales. So the euro area is made up of 19 countries, and it reported a rate of change improvement from April to May for retail sales that was an astounding 14.5%. This is absolutely fantastic. May grew by 14.5% relative to April. But again, a little bit more bad news, because we went from a negative 19.6% contraction year over year to only a negative 5.1%. So it's getting less worse. This particular data set stretches all the way back to 1996, and the listener will not be surprised to learn that there is nothing close to that improvement during that entire stretch. A mid-2000 reading of 5.7% is the strongest month-over-month change on record. So this is a really fantastic result for May, but it's kind of hard to say, right? The negative 5.1% that was reported the year over year for May, yeah, it's much better than April, but it's still negative 5.1%. That is actually the third worst on record, with March and April taking the top two spots. The average non-corona reading is a plus 1.1. So your average reading through recessions, through exuberance, through everything except corona is a plus 1% growth year over year. And we're at negative 5.1 in retail sales in the euro area. Now, so it's a question of momentum and sustainability. Once citizens have restocked on what they had lost in March and April, will they enthusiastically push the economy forward? Was it only the virus and the shutdowns, which are now in abeyance, and thus the euro area will go back to the way it was? That's what, all of us are hoping, and perhaps what some politicians in the euro area are telling us will happen. But there's a question to be asked. Is there going to be a reticence by the households in Europe to extend oneself, right, after what they just witnessed? They just went through a very difficult time period. They're looking around and they're saying, am I going to go back to live the way I lived before the virus? Do they expect me to consume as much? Or no, I'm going to save more, which is perfectly reasonable. But for the economy, more saving, less consumptions for the euro area, which is, I believe, the third largest economy in the world after you account for the United States and China. Less consumption in the third largest economic region in the world. That's not going to be great news, right? It is likely the latter. So it's likely that they're going to be reticent, because though it feels long ago, we have to remember that the euro area was tipping into recession before the year had started, or as the year had started. So that's right. The euro area was almost on the cusp, or was on the cusp of a recession before the virus arrived. So it's not only are there going to be holding back because of what happened, because of the virus, because of the shutdowns, but it was already tough going before that. How much can we count on the households in Europe to power the economy forward? I'm worried. I'm worried that this bounce, this amazing, astounding 14.5% improvement that we saw for May, may be, the momentum may be abating as we go through the rest of the year. Speaking of Europe, it's often called the engine of Europe, Germany. It's also had once been called the world's factory, and that title has gone to China now. But Germany, factory orders. Earlier this week, on Monday, we learned that German factory orders, like Euro area retail sales, absolutely rocketed upwards for the month of May. The 10.4% growth month over month is the best number since 1976. And I know you all remember what you were doing in 1976. But it's been that long since Germany has delivered a month of this much growth in factory orders. Remember, the engine of Europe. In some ways, though, it's a little bit like Saturn or Jupiter, right? The gaseous giants are wildly larger than our pastoral earthly experience, our normal experience. If we look at them, they're so much larger. And yet, at the same time, they serve to show us how stupendously large the sun is. By the way, I just wanted to quickly, I don't know if you noticed that, but I just said the sun. Why do we say the sun and not the Jupiter? Shouldn't it be sun and Jupiter? So I went to Jupiter, I went to sun. But no, we always say the sun. This is what troubles me. Okay, let's move on. Yes, May was Saturn-like at 10.4%. It's beyond our earthly experience. Amazing. German factory orders. But that pales in comparison to the sun-like burn of the negative 42% delivered between February and April in Germany. Factory orders for the engine of Europe are now at levels seen at 2009's low, and they were first reached in the late 1990s. That's the level the German factory is operating at right now, the late 1990s. Well, if Germany can string together several more May-like results, great. But let's remember where we were when we started this conversation. The forward-looking June PMIs are not very enthusiastic at all. What I'm worried about with these numbers, retail sales, factory orders in Germany, is that like a ball, when you throw a ball very hard at the ground, when do you have the most momentum? Right off the bottom. And I'm worried that these numbers that we're getting now from May be the best momentum we get. Now, that may not be the case, right? Because the lockdowns took place at different times, and then the release took place at different times. So perhaps May is not actually the full-on, it's time to take off your clothes and go skinny dipping, party, it's open, let's rip-roar this economy forward. Okay, maybe it's not May. Maybe that'll be June. We're waiting. We're going to see what the June numbers look like. But so far, I'm a little bit disappointed with the enthusiasm, with the oomph on these numbers in comparison to what we're seeing in stock markets in Japan, China, Germany, and America. The numbers are not quite as fantastic. Okay, but okay, maybe let's wait till June. When we come back from the break, we're going to go back to Germany, go to Spain, and look at Japan, and then wrap it up. And, well, Susan's indicating that it's time to go to a commercial, so we're going to wrap it up after those three, after our commercial break.
Mommy, have you been taking your medication?
No, I think I forgot to pick it up.
Your doctor prescribed it for a reason, so you should be taking it regularly.
I know, TD. Thanks for the reminder.
If you are elderly or vulnerable and need your prescription delivered to your home, contact the Health Services Authority Pharmacy at 949-8600. Taking your medication when prescribed is important to your health, and your health matters to us. For more information about our pharmacy hours and locations, visit hsa.ky or call 949-8600.
We are in the hurricane season, and knowing what to do after a hurricane can be as important as preparing for the storm. After the passage of a hurricane, seek medical attention if it is needed at hospitals and clinics for those persons who are injured. Do not touch power lines and cables that are down. They may be active. Report them to 911 or the utilities emergency hotlines. Broken tree limbs should be removed from around homes or buildings if possible. This hurricane information has been brought to you by Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
This is
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back. My name is Emil Kalinowski, and we are taking a tour around the world to try to get a sense of whether or not the global economy is recovering, how much oomph is in the recovery, because it's not just about money, it's not just about finance. It's important for our social fabric. It's important for our politics that we have a healthy economy. We just went through history with a capital H, something that hasn't been seen since the Great Depression, possibly even longer. So it looks like the shutdowns are behind us for now, hopefully, and the economy is recovering. Many people have said that we went into this shutdown strong. Our economy was roaring. It was here in the Cayman Islands. It was. But around the world, I don't believe that was the case. And we're going to see that in some of the numbers that we're going to look at right now. We're taking a tour around the world. We're looking at recently, in fact, economic data that was released this week that are good indicators about the strength of the recovery that may tell us how long it's going to take us to get back to where we were at the beginning of the year. Let's go back to Germany and let's talk about industrial production. Industrial production in Germany surged 7.8% month over month. That is the best single month in the data series that goes all the way back to 1991. Now the trouble is the depth and the nature of the contraction. In terms of depth, the nation has been in a continuous slide from its alpine heights since December 2017. For 2 years, it had cartwheeled down the mountainside such that by December 2019, Germany, the nation, had found its industrial production levels at an elevation it had first scaled in 2008. A couple of points here. What is industrial production? Industrial production is manufacturing, mineral extraction, and utilities. So utilities, power generation, water, mineral extraction, think oil, think silver, gold, copper, that sort of thing, mining. But manufacturing is, of course, what we primarily think of when we think of Germany. And it's the factory of Europe, it's the factory of the world, amazing products coming out of Germany. And that's the point also why we're talking about Germany. Germany's economy reflects more than just Germany. They are an export powerhouse. Their industrial production, their manufacturing says at least half of what it says is about the global customer. And that's what we're trying to find out. How's the global customer doing? And that means eventually how will our economy do here in the Cayman Islands. So that's what industrial production is. And very importantly, I just want to underline, Germany's industrial production has been sliding since December 2017, not December 2019, not since the coronavirus. It had been in a 2-year slide, such that by the end of last year, it was at a level it had been in 2008. That's 11 years of activity lost, not growing. Well, so then, like the almost Academy Award-winning 1993 American movie Cliffhanger, the bad guy arrived, right? So we're at the end of 2019, and then the bad guy arrives, and his name is Coronavirus. And he's performing the best version of John Lithgow. It could manage. The virus walked up to the economy, which is now precariously hanging off a ledge, and it said, "Don't bother to buckle up. You may not want to survive this." And then he stepped on the country's fingers, and the resulting free fall decked it all the way to levels first reached in the early 1990s. Yes, after the virus struck, Germany's industrial production was at a level it was at in the early 1990s. So since the 90s, because we're talking about how long will it take to recover, since the 90s, Germany has faced 3 downturns, and this is the 4th. It took between 4 and 8 years to clamber up to the prior peak. If what we're experiencing now is deglobalization, then the world's 4th largest economy, with 47% of it geared towards the export of goods and services, may not see those December 2017 heights again till the late 2020s. Because again, it takes 48 years for Germany to recover, and maybe this particular downturn is particularly bad for Germany because it may be deglobalization. Remember, between 2017 and 2019, we had the trade wars. And now we're worried about globalization because all of our products are being manufactured in one country. And that's very efficient. That's great for money savings, but it's not very resilient, is it? So maybe we shouldn't maybe we shouldn't import as much. That's what many countries around the world may be thinking. Let us move down a little bit south to Spain, industrial production. Now, everyone loves Spain. Who doesn't love the Spain? I don't know anybody that doesn't love the Spanish, the food, the art, the leather. Love it. Did you know that Spain, just a few years ago, was an economic force? These days, we look at Spain and think of it as a vacation destination, as kind of people who have an economy that's sort of moving along, but not really. They're in debt. We don't have a very high opinion of the Spanish economy. A few years ago, it was a powerhouse. So, whereas Germany continually climbs back to scale new heights of industrial production, Spain only rolls farther downhill. And again, we're talking about industrial production. Today, Spain is the world's 13th largest economy, accounting for 1.6% of global gross domestic product. And like Germany, the country just reported the greatest month-over-month increase for industrial production in data series history. At 14.7%, it was almost double the German improvement. And Spain's rally is all the more impressive because historically their data series goes back to 1975. So extremely impressive month of May. But the positive comparisons stop there. Spain's industrial production deficit is so vast, it'll likely not be overcome for a generation. The country first has to scale 23% just to get back to pre-corona levels. From there, another switchback up the mountainside of 3% just to get back to where it was before 2011's European sovereign debt crisis. Then another 21% up, they have to go another, they have to rappel 21% more up 2008's sheer great financial crisis wall. All of that effort would get Spain back to where it was in 2007, when it was impressively the world's 8th largest economy, accounting for 2.5% of global GDP. There's a lot of talk about that there might be an economic depression going on these days. That is what an economic depression looks like, Spain. But as human civilization, as I often talk about on these airwaves, human civilization progresses at a non-linear pace. The true scale of the loss is only appreciated by extending the long-term trend growth from 2007 onwards. That means that in terms of industrial production, Spain is now 53% off trend that the country had grown accustomed to over 2 generations from 1975 to 2007. It's not just the coronavirus. We've been in an economic depression, not here on the island, but ever since 2007. And this is just the latest body blow. We've got a few minutes left, and we're going to save the best and most recent for last. Japan. The economic data came out this morning. That's right. Your host was up at 2 a.m. waiting for the latest machine tool report. Let's find out what happened. So on Tuesday, the Cabinet Office in Japan released their coincident and leading economic indexes for the world's third largest economy. We just talked about what coincident and leading are in the first half of the show. These indexes incorporate variables such as consumer sentiment, employment, factory output, job offers, and retail sales. The coincident, or the current, indicator showed continued contraction for May from 80.1 to 74.6. All right, it's not important so much as the numbers, just it's still contracting in May. As is the case with so many nations, the downturn was well underway before the Karuna Uriusu. I'm trying to say coronavirus in Japanese. I know. We're going to get a lot of letters, and Susan's going to have to deal with them. Don't forward them on to me, Susan, please. Okay, I'll say it again. Kuraun Uriusu arrived. Oh, geez. In the past 35 years, only the 2009 experience ranks worst according to this measure. So, coincident. Where's the Japanese economy right now? It's at 2009 levels. That's the worst in 35 years. The leading indicator shows a light pickup from April 78 to 79 for May. All right. Okay. Well, it's better than a shot to the kidneys. Sure. I'll take it. Now, if your host was to pick just one economic account to serve as a leading indicator, not just for Japan, but for the world, it may very well be the Japanese Machine Tool Builder Association's tool orders. This morning, the association reported that orders for June increased by 31%. That's in the top 99% of results since 1983. So, it's great news. The only bad news is that it was at a very low level already. And that's what we're going to be seeing over the coming weeks and months, most likely. We are experiencing a boom right now. The boom is the reopening boom. What we're going to have to see is that reopening boom translating into a sustainable economic boom, one that can build upon itself to make up not only the ground lost during the coronavirus, but also the ground that was being lost from the beginning of 2018 as the world economy was slowing. And then hopefully after that, we need to make up all the ground that we have been kind of struggling since 2008. It's going to be a long struggle, but I'm very optimistic that we can and we will. And I know there's a true golden economic age ahead of us. We have some tough, difficult days ahead of us, but I'm very optimistic about the future. By the end of this decade, I think it's going to be we're going to be living in a golden age. I can't put it any better than that. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. You can find more of my work on Twitter at Emil Kalinowski, as well as the team here at Money Sense, at Money Sense Radio. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to talk to you again in a couple of weeks. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and please do reach out on Twitter if you have any questions about this show.
Thank you, Emil. And the studio time now by Foster's is 7:59. But before that, we'll give you the outro.
you can save big on your groceries.
This week we have essential everyday almond milk